So, let's see. Okay. I think we're good.
Is Ken back?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I hate to say this, but we didn't need him for the quorum.
Yep.
And while we're waiting for him,
Ken is here.
well, there he is. Okay,
There he
we
is.
needed you back, Ken, for the.
Sorry,
quorum.
yeah, I'm sorry, doing something for the kids. I think they're all right for a few minutes.
Okay,
And Mr. Thomas, Pig Grant is the, was it the, I just heard, so it was for, it's the, planning incentive grant.
thank you. That's right. That's right.
Okay.
All right, are we ready?
Yes,
We're
sir.
ready.
All right. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Franklin Township Land Use Board. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that a notice was published in the Hunterdon County Democrat in the Express Times, and the notice of this meeting was posted on a bulletin board in the municipal building. Please recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the
Allegiance to the
flag
of the United States of America,
to
to
the
the
republic,
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Catherine, would you please call the roll?
Roger Soltis,
Here.
Dave Dallas,
Here.
Phil Corey,
Here,
Jennifer Fisher,
Here,
Jonathan A,
Here.
Mike Shabra, Stephen Willis, Ken Weiss,
Here,
Catherine, did you have the minutes from the last meeting?
No, I didn't get to send those out before I left,
Okay,
but I sent out the bills list. Did you receive that?
yes, I did.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't there before I moved
Yep.
on.
Mhm.
All right, so we'll have that for the next meeting.
Mhm.
All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of bills. And we have one bill from Colliers in the amount of $1,966.38. We have a motion to approve paying the bill.
So moved.
That was Dave Dallas.
Yes.
Second,
Second.
second,
Did you take Jen's name on the roll,
yes, I did.
Catherine?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Roger Soltis,
Yes.
Dave Dallas,
Yes.
Phil Corey,
yes,
Jennifer Fisher,
yes,
Jonathan A,
Yes.
Ken Weiss.
yes,
All right, moving on to new business. The first item of new business is the memorialization of the James Carter Pop this resolution 121 Upper Town Road. It's for a variance to construct a 3,000 square foot accessory structure. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
second,
All right, thank you. Any additions or corrections or comments on this? Hearing none, Catherine, would you please call the roll?
Roger Soltis,
Yes.
Dave Dallas,
Yes.
Phil Corey,
yes,
Jennifer Fisher,
yes,
Jonathan A,
Yes.
Ken Weiss.
yes,
All right, the next item is the second hearing of the Yum and Chill Wen Holdings proposed Wendy's in the Walmart Plaza. Is the applicant here?
Yes, Alan Loker for the applicant.
Okay,
Mr. Loker, excuse me, Roger, if I could just interrupt. Mr. Loker, I just want to make you aware, We do have a quorum, however, we do only have 5 people tonight. So I just wanted you to be aware. I don't know what your plans are, but you know, as you know, there is a D variance here. So you understand the implications of that. We can certainly proceed. I suggest that we do, but I just want you to be aware that at this point, we only have 5 members. And I would assume that all 5 have been present at the last meetings. But nonetheless, I just wanted you to be aware of that fact.
The rest of that statement is that for a D variance to be approved, all 5 members present have to vote yes.
That is correct.
So that's something I was not aware of in terms of how many members would be present. What that means for my client is perhaps we go through and we put on our proofs, but perhaps not ask for a decision tonight with the expectation that at the following meeting, whoever was not present this evening would have listened to the tape and verified that they had listened to the tape and that they were in a position to render a decision.
We would certainly encourage that to occur.
To not ask for a decision tonight.
Not ask for, well, I'm not saying, that's up to you, but if you decide to end up deferring the decision because of the number of votes that you have between now and the next meeting, I'm sure that Catherine will make an attempt to make sure that those members who are not present will listen to the tapes and that you would have eligible 7 members, which you are entitled to.
Okay. Now, just so I'm clear, how many members of the board, because I'm not familiar with all of them, how many board members are actually present?
Well, there are 6 present tonight, but 1, the mayor, is not eligible to be voting.
That's correct.
So you only have 5. You have Ms. Fisher, you have Mr. Soltis, that's Roger on the screen. It's Dave Dallas, Mr. Thone, and Mr. Weiss, Ken Weiss. Those are the members that are present, that will be present to hear the application.
So Roger, in lieu of that, being that I'm the mayor, I'm going to recuse myself from participating in the meeting from here forward.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Okay, everyone have a nice night. I'll be listening but I won't watch.
Thank you.
Zoom is a great thing. We all get to stay home or wherever where it's air conditioned, but it makes it more difficult to talk to your client. There's no, can you give me 5 minutes kind of thing and step back. So I just texted my client to explain to him that what I'm sure he has heard and to ask for his decision whether to just go ahead with presenting our revised plans and whatnot and defer a decision. So if you can bear with me, I'm sure he's talking to his business partner.
Let us know. I mean, hopefully you'll get a response quickly, but let us know when you're ready.
I was explaining to him what the implications were if all 5 members did not vote to approve. So bear with me a little bit longer. Okay, my client has said that he would like to go ahead and present our testimony and defer a decision until your next board meeting.
Okay. Why don't you
Okay, so
proceed?
with that, So-
Roger, before we get into the applicant, I would like our engineer, Adam, to just briefly go through his report for the board and for the applicant. You know, and then I would also like a planner to just go through the points because there were apparently some variances that were not asked for. And so, I'd like to hear from our engineer, and I'd like to hear from whoever's taking Darlene's place.
Yeah, Austin.
Excuse me, before we do that, Mr. McDonough, who was our planner, did address all the variance relief. I think what your board planner was stating is that for purposes of the record, she wants the variances noted for the record, but it doesn't mean we didn't address them already. We did. If anybody disagrees,
I
You can-
did review the report, and Austin, you, I'm sure, reviewed the report as well. It is my understanding that Mr. McDonough was here at the last meeting, and he did testify with regard to the variances. I believe that what has been said is that the plans don't specifically make reference to all of the variances and waivers, and that if, in fact, there is an approval that she is requesting, and I agree with her, that the plans need to be revised, and I'm sure they'll have to be revised for a number of reasons, but be that as it may, that they be revised specifically to include references to all the variances and waivers that are granted. That's important, I think, for the township's records and actually for the applicant, so that it is clear what this board has done in the event of an approval, so that everybody has a clear understanding as to what the approval was for. Not just for a site plan or a D variance, but also whatever the other variances may be and waivers.
sure, and we agree with that, and would, of course, update the plans to reflect those other variances and waivers.
Roger, those could just be conditions of approval. Am I correct?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't disagree with Roger Soltis that if he would like to hear, the planner's report, because it's not just those variances. There's a number of other items, as well as Adam's report. If he wants to do that now, certainly that's, if you all want to do it that way, that's fine. But yes, John, you're absolutely right. If there is an approval, there could ultimately be, and there would be, I would certainly insist that the map be revised to reflect each of those variances and waivers.
Can I just make one suggestion? I mean, our engineer he prepared a revised plan, and he is prepared to address Adam's technical review number 2. So we're going to do that anyway. And with respect to the board planner's updated planning report, the conditions of approval that she noted, which we don't disagree with, we're going to hit those too. It might be better to address the board engineer and board planners reports in the context of their counterparts presenting their testimony.
Okay,
Otherwise-
let's do that. And Adam, if you pick up on, if there's anything that was omitted, please let us know, okay?
Certainly, yeah, definitely.
All right, so you can go ahead and have your engineer make his report.
Okay, well, before we do, let me just give a brief overview so we kind of are centered on what we're going to try to get done tonight. So at the conclusion of last month's board meeting, the applicant was asked to review our site plan and architectural drawings to address concerns raised by board members and your board professionals related to the site plan with respect to impervious coverage, landscaping, and lighting, with respect to the architectural drawings, addressing concerns regarding the visibility of pedestrians using the crosswalk to get to the parking area, screening the rooftop equipment, and some sign details. And the board specifically asked that we engage a traffic engineer to address the queuing for the drive-through, which we've also done. So what we're going to present tonight is a revised site plan, which Mark will address shortly, removing the net increase in coverage, landscaping design, lighting design, relocating employee parking to address the drive-through concerns. And Eric from Zelta Designs will present a revised architectural drawing that removes the red tower that was a concern adjacent to the pedestrian walkway. And he will show a conceptual rooftop equipment and also the screening plan for that was requested, and signage. And we also have a traffic engineer with us this evening who will present his traffic report. And that's also pretty much the order in which things are going to go. So I would like Mark from East Point Engineering, who was previously sworn and remains under oath, to make his presentation. Oh,
Mark-
before we
Mark-
do that, Mr. Thomas, real quick, we do have 3 people who were not previously sworn who will give testimony. Do you want to swear them now? And then 2 of them are professionals. They can be qualified later as necessary.
Now, what we'll do is we'll take the engineer and then we'll swear them in each individually as they come to testify.
Okay,
Sir,
thank you.
first of all, would you identify yourself for the record, your name, spell your last name, and location of your offices, please?
Yes, good evening. It's Mark Lieber. I'm with East Point Engineering in Marlborough, New Jersey.
Spell your last name, please.
Sure, L-E-B like Brian, E-R.
Thank you. And you acknowledge, as your counsel has indicated, that you were previously sworn to remain under oath, correct?
That's true, yes.
Thank you. Why don't you proceed? Oh, one other quick thing, and I apologize for interrupting. Catherine, I don't have a list of any exhibits that may have been submitted at the last meeting. I don't know if you have them, but if you don't, we can, I think it's appropriate to mark the revised plans, which I understand are currently revised to the 29th of June, 2022. If we don't know what the exhibit list is now, we will mark them for purposes of today's record as A1 and then adjust them accordingly if there were prior, unless, Mr. Loper, do you know where we stand in that regard? Because I wasn't here the last meeting.
I'm trying to look back at my notes.
I had 8-3 as the last one.
So then we'll mark this one as A4, and
Yep.
that will be the revised, what is described as use variance site plan revised to the 29th of June. Thank you.
Okay, Mark, sure.
All right, good evening. Just to give a little bit of a recap, since it's been sometimes since we last met. This is the, I guess, Walmart ShopRite shopping center. The property is pretty large. It's, bear with me here.
Would it be helpful while you're looking to see if you could put whatever particular sheet you would like to refer to on the screen? That way.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do.
Catherine, are you able to do that?
Yeah, I have it, so he can share it.
Okay. Thank
Okay,
you.
it's 36 acres. It's in the CN zone. I'm going to put up sheet 3, which is one of the revised drawings that we had submitted.
Thank you.
Let me just get that on my screen. Okay, you see that there?
We do.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you what the main changes were to the application. Starting with sheet 3. When we were here at the board, we had 4 employee parking spaces on the left here on the side. We went and moved those and reduced it to 3 employee parking spaces after speaking with the landlord and moved them to the right side. Now, we're talking about a very small increase in lot coverage at the last meeting, and I indicated that just by dumb luck, the area inside the drive-through from the bank, had we curbed the inside radius and converted the island to grass, we would be able to eliminate all increases in impervious coverage. So this plan shows a 18-foot inner curb radius, which is a standard for a drive-through. And as a result of that, on the cover sheet, we eliminated the lot coverage increase and showed that it was staying the same. The question came up at the last meeting about, providing a landscaping and a lighting plan. So if you go through the drawing set, we had a new sheet, which was number 5. I just put that up on the screen too. This is a totally new plan. It shows proposed landscaping and lighting. And if you recall, we indicated we had to remove this one tree to construct the dumpster area. And in lieu of removing the one tree, we're proposing 23 new trees. 2 of them are deciduous. And the rest of them are evergreen and ornamental trees. And then throughout the area of the drive-through lane, we have a series of shrubs and landscape boulders just for, aesthetics. We're proposing a building mounted light, which is just before the drive-through canopy. It's a LED, which is specifically designed for a site lighting application. And what you'll see here, these dashed lines are lighting levels. As you get closer to the fixture, the lighting level increases, starting at 2-foot candles all the way out to 0.2-foot candles. And again, that was done in, as follows. The thing I want to mention was, I did go through the board engineer's review letter. Let me just stop that sharing. And we agreed to all the comments. We're going to show the EV space on the plan and revise the various notations or provide the details that are requested. We have no issues with that at all. There was significant discussion at the last meeting about sewer capacity. We did get a letter which was submitted to the board from Clinton Township. And yeah, I could read into the record what the board, what the letter said, which was that
I think that, you can do that certainly, because it's not that long a letter, but we should mark that letter as part of the record. I have it in my file. If you have it handy, maybe you could give me the date. I just don't have it.
Yeah, it's July 5.
Thank you.
It's the town of Clinton, not Clinton Township.
Thank you.
So what they wrote was they examined the water and the sewer usage. So with regard to water, there's a lot they use. So water's a sewer, there are a lot per day. Go back to 2019, before the pandemic, they were only using 9,400 gallons. In 2020, it dropped to 6,635. In 2021, it was 5,911. So they just said that the sites historically used less than their daily and annual allocations for sewer, and there's no allocation for water. So, understandably, that's not, listed as a concern. That's really all of our changes, was to the drive-through, the landscaping, the reserve parking, and impervious and whatnot. And as I stated, I have no objection at all to any of the board engineers' review comments.
Now, Mark, Mr. Thomas, do you want to mark Adam's letter as B1?
No, I don't think we need to do that, but I do want to make it clear that the town of Clinton letter dated July 5th should be marked as A5.
Yep, got it.
Mark, the board planner also presented an updated planning report. Did you get a chance to review that?
Yes.
And from an engineering perspective, with respect to the conditions of approval she was requesting, that we agree to provide those as well.
Yes, I believe the letter you're referring to is the July 12th letter.
Correct.
Right, and I heard some discussion earlier on about, the plans not specifically notating each of the variances that she had noted in the letter. And some of those items were pre-existing nonconformities. And I have no issues adding additional notes to my cover sheet. We're not trying to escape the fact that, if those variances were identified and we do need that relief, I have no issue putting that on my cover sheet. And I believe that John had covered the justifications for those variances at the last meeting, and he had shown the board the photographs from the site in explaining, the necessity for that relief. I know there was discussion about signs that, although we exceeded the allowable signs, that, a lot of the signs were for navigational purposes, not necessarily advertising the business and things of that nature. And then he had gone through the proofs. And, when I read the letter, I didn't find any, comments that were concerning or things that, were an issue. I know there was something about the hours of operation, which we indicated the drive-through would not be open till 2:30 a.m., that we would close the drive-through at midnight. I'm just trying to skim through if I'm missing any of the,
Let's just stop if you can on that particular item.
yeah,
It has been pointed out that the mall, I guess I'll call it that, generally closes at 11.
Mhm.
And there was, as you've indicated, there was the original proposal to have the drive-through open till after 2, I guess it was, or 2:30. And now, and the stipulation was that it was going to be reduced to 12, but that seems to be at odds with what the rest of the mall is like. Can you comment on that? Why it is that you're going to be different from the rest of the mall in terms of hours of operation, particularly as it relates to the drive-through?
yes. One of the things John had talked about is that there's a whole bunch of people that are out there working when most of us are in bed. And he went through like the list, maybe nurses, police officers that are getting off their shift, hotel clerks and restaurant workers, warehouse workers, supermarket restockers, car service drivers, highway construction, paramedics, all those people that are working at night. They should also have the freedom and the availability to find someplace to eat. In this particular case, because we're right next door to like Walmart and ShopRite, there are evening workers that are restocking that perhaps leave between 11 and 12, might stop by this place to pick up something on their way home. And that was one of the reasons.
They presumably, if the mall closes at 11, those workers could either stop over at 11 o'clock as well, or the police, the nurses' aides, the people that work in various other shifts would have a similar ability, admittedly an hour less, but they'd have a similar ability, correct?
It all depends. I know like restockers in large food stores like ShopRite, there are probably people in the store 24 hours a day at some point. Granted, I don't know when they get their breaks and when their shifts end, but it seems conceivable that lacking other food options in this area at that hour, that being open that extra hour could be beneficial.
Understood. I guess
those
it'll ultimately be up to the board as to how long they think is appropriate. I understand your argument, or Mr. McDonough's argument. The board will ultimately decide whether or not the 12 o'clock is appropriate, or if it should be more consistent with the mall. So why don't you move on? I didn't mean to interrupt, but thank you for taking that question now.
Thank you.
If you have any further comments with regard to Darlene's report, feel free to do that at this point.
I think, that was really it. There were some technical items in the report, about the trash enclosure, which, we have no issue addressing. They're really minor in nature. She did have architectural comments, starting on page 11, which we have an architect tonight to go through his changes to the building. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I just think like on the whole, when you look at the application, we're really just speaking about a tenant space that's been vacant for, I think, 4 or 5 years. And, we presented at the last meeting, we understood the board's concerns and, took their feedback to revise and represent this latest set of plans. So I'm hoping that, we touched upon all the, items of concern, and, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, I have a question. One of the items that we had some questions about the last meeting was that Red Wendy's sign.
Yeah.
And I think what was shown, if you're facing the building on the left-hand side, there was going to be a very wide red vertical section of that sign coming down to the ground. Which would-
Correct, that's gone.
do you have a picture of what you're replacing that with?
Our architect will present that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A copy was filed with Catherine, but he'll present it when it's his turn to speak.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for the engineer? Any members of
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I have just a few, like what was talked about, minor comments in our review letter. Sorry, by the way, my name's Austin Beach. I'm covering for Darlene tonight. So I don't know if you want me to go through just the couple of comments that we have in our letter, just to kind of get a clarification on that.
I know we have the engineering aspect and we have an architectural aspect. This, I assume, is towards the engineer, right?
Towards the engineer, correct?
Fine, go ahead.
Okay.
Austin, when you do that, would you be kind enough to direct us to those comments on the page that you're referring to?
Of course.
Thank you.
Okay, so the first one that we found that wasn't quite addressed was comment number 8 on page 8. It was just asking if the new trash enclosure is for that whole building or for just the Wendy's use. We just wanted to clarify that.
It's only for Wendy's.
Okay. Okay, moving on to comment number 13. You had shared before the site plan and how there's an existing tree to remain kind of inside that drive-through curve. And then right below that, you have the sidewalk and then another existing tree. We just want to clarify that that tree will be protected and not require removal to construct that sidewalk. And that is comment 13 on page 10.
Let me just zoom in for 1 second.
Sure.
We'll do our best to keep the tree. I could offer that if the tree has to come down, we'd be happy to replant another tree in its place. There's a small grade change there to keep the sidewalk more or less level. And if and it's similar to, in a residential development, when someone has a tree that raised the sidewalk and then they replace the sidewalk and then the wind blows and the tree falls down. If we feel that the tree needs to have the roots cut, it's not going to be stable anymore, then we'll have to put in a new tree.
Okay. Yeah, and I would.
Austin, how big is that tree that you're talking about?
So on the plans, it says it's a 12-inch tree.
12-inch diameter tree?
Diameter, yes.
That's a pretty big tree. I assume that, you're not going to replace it with a 12-inch diameter tree.
Right. And so the reason I was asking if that tree needs to be removed is the waiver that we have in our letter on page 6. It talks about the replacement trees for tree removal. So if that tree were to be removed, it would have to be replaced with either a 12-inch tree, which is probably not likely, or smaller trees that add up to 12 inches in diameter. So
this tree.
Got it.
That looks to be the tree.
So, Mr. Lieber, that being said, I'm assuming you would agree that it's not likely that your client's going to be able to put in a 12-inch diameter tree. It
No.
probably wouldn't live anyway. So you would agree that if it does have to come down, there would be replacement of trees that would ultimately equal the appropriate ordinance requirement, which is a total of 12 inches, whatever number of trees that may be.
Yeah, I think that's fine. And we have plenty of room to plant.
Thank you.
Okay. The next comment I had was actually addressed. You had mentioned that the light was wall mounted. So that addressed my comment number 15. This is architecture. I'm guessing signage comments would be better directed to the architect, is that right?
What page you on?
I'm on page 13, comment number 24, 27, and then a few others down below.
Page 12.
Page 12 starts the signage comment section. The first comment
Right.
that I believe is outstanding is 27, comment 27 on the next page, 13.
Got it.
All right, I think Eric, our architect's going to show you that elevation facing the eastern wall.
Okay.
All right, good.
And then I'm just looking through the rest of those comments. Yeah, you had on number 32 that we should confirm that only one direction sign is proposed.
Right. So our question with that was for the Wendy's directional sign, the one that says enter, to kind of guide people into the drive aisle that leads to the drive-through.
Yeah, that's the only one.
That's the only one. Okay, we were just wondering because sometimes when these are located in larger retail developments, they have them at the entrance so that people know there's a Wendy's there, and then they use other signs to direct the traffic to their drive-through. But so that was our comment there.
There's a sign on the marquee at the intersection. There's a, there, but that's separate.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I'm guessing our comment. Let's see. It was comment number 23 about that marquee sign, a detail being provided as a condition of approval that is agreeable with you.
Yeah, so what we ended up doing, you look at drawing sheet 3.
Sheet 3. Okay.
I'll put that up really quick, actually. I didn't want to recreate the wheel here, so I just took a picture of that sign.
Okay.
And I just put an arrow saying this is the space we would use. And that's all. I was trying to just keep it practical here.
Okay. Okay, so then moving on. That's the same. Okay, so comment number 33 at the bottom of page 14. We talk about the detail of, I guess, they're labeled as dual lane detectors, but
It's going to
there's
be
a drive-through.
Yeah, it's a single lane.
Okay, yeah, so just as a condition of approval, I would say that, just the plans be revised to only show the single lane to avoid any confusion with that. And then I think the last one, engineering related, would be comment number 36 on page 15 regarding the trash enclosure gate, because on sheet 7 of the plans, there's 2 different gate designs. One looks like it's chain link with mesh, and then the other one looks to be a solid fence. I'm not sure which one the applicant intends to do or install, but just to clarify which is preferred.
What page was that on, Austin?
It is on page 15.
So in other properties, we've done the composite gate. It's nicer looking.
Okay.
When you say the composite gate, Mr. Lieber, is that the solid gate?
Yeah, it's the detail that's higher up on the plan sheet.
Got it.
That's on sheet 7 of the plans, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think from an engineering perspective, that's all the questions I had.
All right, I just took some notes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any of the board members have any questions for the applicant's engineer? Do any members of the public have any questions for the applicant's engineer?
I believe Frank Toda has a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Mr. Toda.
Mr. Toto, would you be kind enough to identify yourself, please? And if you can, it would be helpful if you could have yourself shown, because, oh, there you are. I see. But are
My
you
camera doesn't work, Roger,
Oh, okay. All right, good.
and my address is 16 Upper Kingtown Road.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. I'm curious as to the reason why you need to have the parking spaces at the entrance area of the drive-through. It would strike me as a safer alternative to not have any parking in that area, given the fact that if someone parks there and has to pull out, they're now pulling out in the direction of opposing traffic coming into the drive-through. And from looking at your drawing, although it appears as though there's enough room for one car to go in one direction and the other to, go in the opposite direction, if you're pulling out, the length of a car is longer than the width of a car. And so it wouldn't seem to me that there would be a lot of maneuverability space in that aisle. And given the fact that that parking lot is so underutilized anyway, wouldn't it make more sense to maybe make the sweep of that drive-through go out further into that sort of, we'll call it the left side area where you have parking? And then if you need to create employee parking, essentially flip it so that it's on the outside of the drive-through rather than on the inside of the drive-through.
So when we laid it out, we were trying to retain the existing drive aisle in its current form, which is, the same aisle the bank was utilizing in the queuing area. But, granted, the queue for this type of use might be more than that of a bank. We brought with us tonight a traffic engineer to discuss the queue and as to the maneuverability. I mean, it is a fully, functional two-way aisle there. I understand your question if someone needs to pull out, that there could possibly be a car blocking them, in which case usually get a courtesy gap or someone to let you out. But we have someone here tonight who can address that question.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps, maybe in thinking about the answer to that question is if you were to white paper it and not have the bias of what was there before, would you have necessarily designed it the way you did, or would you have designed it differently to eliminate those spaces?
Well, it's a good question because it's actually somewhat common that on a drive-through restaurant use, at some point in that queue, whether it's 7 cars or 8 cars or 9 cars, at some point it's going to extend into a drive aisle where, potentially someone would need to be allowed out to get out. Even working in a vanilla box, you're not really going to have the luxury of a large, unending wrapping queue that doesn't impact. But when we were at the last meeting, we said that this actually works out better than your typical fast food drive-through, because most of those types of buildings, for example, if they're on a state highway, the queue would spill out into the state highway, which is not desirable. But in this particular situation, if the queue were to be in excess of what we show, it's just spilling out into like you stated, a severely underutilized parking area that probably isn't going to be occupied to begin with. So, I mean, from that perspective, it actually works out better that we have the luxury of having this parking area to accommodate a queue. And, one of the things is, I guess, the behavior of people is if they're looking for something fast and they want a hamburger at Wendy's, if they see 8 cars or 9 cars in the queue, they're probably just going to go somewhere else because they don't want to wait. You know, and that's also something else that this traffic engineers here tonight can, you know, get more in detail on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public have any questions for the applicant's engineer? All right, would you like to call your next expert then?
Yes, that will be Eric Lipens, the architect.
Good evening.
Sir, do you swear the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes,
Would you be kind enough to state your name, spell your last name for the record, and give us the location of your professional offices, please?
sure. My name is Eric Liepins, ERIK LIEPINS. My
Okay.
office is at 45 Sussex Avenue, Newark, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Eric, do you have an exhibit you want to identify and show?
I do. I'll
Okay.
share my screen here.
And yes, those are, and the plan that I have, those are the plans that were originally submitted? Because I don't have a revision date on the plan that I have.
So these were submitted for this
Oh.
meeting.
I
But I do-
apologize. It is the 29th. I missed that date. It is the
Yes.
29th. So
I
I'll
do
mark-
have a new exhibit on page 3, the exterior elevations, which does take into account the report, which we can mark as a new exhibit when I do get to that page.
Yeah, why don't we end up marking the entirety as A6?
Sure. So as mentioned previously, one of the biggest concerns of the architectural design at the last meeting was the red tower element and the visibility that would hinder from somebody leaving the drive-through lane. So we completely removed that, and now you see here on the far right of the plan 3 existing columns. Those are to remain. We are not enlarging or building a wall anymore, so the visibility will not be affected. You can also see the curb ramp, which coordinates with the site plan for the handicap spaces. That's the only change that happened to the plan itself. I can go to the next sheet, page 2 here, which is the roof plan. Again, this is noted as conceptual purposes, as the mechanical design has not been completed. But we do know that we'll have 2 rooftop units, which are indicated here, several walk-in box compressors, ice machine compressors, exhaust fans, and the request was in the report to have screening around those HVAC units. And we do provide screening. The top of the sheet does show a detail along with an enlarged elevation of what that would look like. There was a comment in the report that wanted me to confirm that the screen would be sufficient to shield the rooftop equipment. And yes, that is sufficient. And the other units, condensing units and exhaust fans are not as tall as the rooftop units, therefore shall not be visible from the ground. Going to the elevations. Now this was updated based on the report. So this is different from what was submitted. So starting with the south elevation, the sign was changed to be within the 5-foot height requirement. Dimensions were added, so you can see it's a 3.5-foot high sign, a 12-foot 7.5 wide. The frontage of this south elevation is also dimensioned at 41 feet. And you can see the red tower element is no longer a tower, it's more of a band, and the dark gray columns, the existing columns, are shown. We can move to the east elevation, which is 63 feet 2 inches long. You can see the Wendy's sign. We also added the thank you sign. We would like to add that. That's a non-illuminated sign. So we did add that next to the pickup window. You can see the screening around the HVAC units. We also labeled the wall sconces, which were the two white squares that were questioned. And on the far right, you can see the red element stops at about 9.5 feet above grade. If I go through, there were some notes on the signage, which I believe I touched on in this updated exhibit, included those dimensions. I believe that satisfies the questions that were brought up.
The Wendy's sign above the drive-in,
Yes,
that's not colored?
it's
Not
white.
red?
It's just white.
The letters are just white.
Yes,
And the background is what?
it's gray.
Is that like a cement?
No, it's an ephes material, just a dark charcoal painted color. Same as the red, that's an ephes material, painted red.
Okay. Thank you.
Eric, I just had one thing I wanted to ask. I guess, I don't know if it's critical or not, but obviously, you know, your elevation, your east elevation doesn't show the wall mounted overhead fixture, the light that's going to illuminate the drive-through area. So, you know, in the future, prior to construction, we'll probably want to add that to the plan as well, indicating the 16-foot mounting height.
Not a problem. We can include that in the
Very good.
permit set.
Thanks.
Adam, where is that? Or maybe Eric, you could show where it might be added, so I could.
It's sort of at the center of the building in the east elevation, but of course, Eric could speak to that.
So it's right in that area.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
And the top, just one other note on that, the top of the parapet here is almost 18 feet, roughly 17 feet, 10 inches. So it'd be about 2 feet below the parapet line at that 16-foot level.
Austin, did you have any questions in light of the testimony?
Yes, sorry, I'm just going through my letter, just double checking.
Sure, take your time.
Yes, which I actually just realized might have been for the engineer. I had missed that because it was in the signage section. But the directional sign that we talked about earlier, is that to be illuminated? There was no information on the plans about that.
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then I had a couple other questions, just to clarify that this exhibit that you're presenting is the correct signs that are proposed, because we did receive a signage packet that I don't think had a date, but it was various signs that were proposed. I don't know if you have a copy of that handy.
I do. This document here?
Yes, that one.
Yes,
Now that had been previously submitted.
it was. I believe it was, yes.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was submitted with the package that was provided on July 1st, I believe.
Thank you.
So this does, the only one, I do want to bring up the building sign page, which is page 4 here, where it does say sign on the red tower. That was updated based on the report received yesterday. So that, you know, what's shown here is the Wendy's logo above the Wendy's text, whereas based on the updated elevation, it's out next to it. So that can get updated.
Okay.
And then the top sign here, which I believe you have noted in your report, number 31, that the logo is omitted, which is, you know, shown here above on the east elevation. That's just the lettering.
Okay. I think if you go back one page from that, yeah, the the one that's labeled, not the thank you sign, is that on the drive-through window? We couldn't tell where that sign was, if it was on the wall or the window.
The one that says quality food made fresh?
Yes.
Dave Thomas sign.
Oh, got it.
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure where that one is located. It's not on the building itself. If it is, it would be on the glass of the pickup window as like a
Okay.
decal. But the thank you sign is just to the right of the pickup window.
Okay.
If you could go back to that page where the, maybe enlarge it, is that on the photo? Is that the sign? No, I thought that was the sign there. Okay, never mind.
I actually just got a note from my client that red decal is no longer used. So it's just the thank you sign that we'll be using.
Okay.
Okay, then with that, I don't have any other questions. So
Actually,
thank you
I
for
guess-
clearing those up.
I'm sorry, Austin. Yeah,
Oh.
just one final question here. Just with regards to the accessibility of the front entrance, I sort of questioned that, I believe last month when we had met at the hearing regarding reviewing the existing that provides access to the front doors. Have you reviewed that, or if Mark had reviewed it, or if you had reviewed it as part of your preparation of the architectural plans? Will that sidewalk curb ramp be reconstructed to provide the required level landing at the front door of the restaurant, as well as, to confirm that the ramp grades are compliant with regards to ADA and then barrier-free access code?
Sure. I'm not sure if Mark, if you can speak to that as it relates to the site.
Yeah, the main entrance door, just on a visual inspection, appears to be compliant.
Okay.
Yeah,
I hadn't put a level on it myself, but I didn't know if you had a chance to do that.
Yeah, it does have the required flat landing prior to, the threshold of the door.
Mhm.
And it actually didn't look that old. But, with all types of ADA access, when you're working with existing buildings, sometimes things get picked up during construction, which, we would obviously agree that if at any point it's determined that that ramp is non-compliant, that we would replace it.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
Well, while you have me here, there was a comment in the report about the signage, that it couldn't be 50% of the width of the building. And I just wanted to be clear that neither facade has a sign that exceeds 50% of the building, and that the total sign square footage over the drive-through is less than 4% of that facade, so that the questions about possible relief being requested for those two items is not required. And I'm specifically referring to, you can't exceed wall and 50% of the width of the wall. I just wanted to clarify that.
Anything further? Mr. Chairman, I guess it would be, if there's no more questions from members of the board, possibly members of the public.
I actually had one question.
Oh, sorry.
Looking at the top front of the building, I'm a little confused what's going on the far right-hand side where you're switching back to the existing canopy. Is that the next business? Is that a definite dividing line between the Wendy's and the next business, or is that a part of the Wendy's section?
So I have a note here that shows the division between
Okay.
the Wendy's and the.
That's what I was like, making sure if that's just the separation between the two. Okay, that makes more
Yes.
sense. I
Yes.
couldn't see it that small.
I guess, Eric, just as, I guess it's obviously an architectural question, but how is that transition going to be made between the flat front of the Wendy's and the more traditional sort of slanted standing seam metal roof there? Is that, have you contemplated that gonna look, I guess?
Yeah, so I know we don't show a section or an elevation, in the opposite direction, but this knotwood siding would return and
Okay.
die into that green sloped roof there.
Okay, that makes sense. Very good.
Any other members of the board have questions for the applicant's architect? Any members of the public have any questions for the applicant's architect?
I don't see anyone hand up, Roger.
All right, I guess you can call your next expert.
Okay, this would be John Korak, professional engineer with Stonefield Engineering.
Hi, good evening.
Sir, do you swear the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you be kind enough to state your name, spell your last name, and give us the location of your offices, please?
Certainly. My name is John Korak, last name spelled C-O-R-A-K. I'm with Stonefield Engineering and Design, 92 Park Avenue in Rutherford, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Okay, so John, you are a traffic engineer. And would you give us the basis for your familiarity with this site with respect to the proposed use? And give us your analysis, particularly with respect to the drive-through queuing, which has been a concern of the board.
Possibly, since he has not been sworn before, maybe we should.
I apologize. He needs to be qualified. That's correct.
Why don't you do that, John?
So John, give us your background, education and experience, please.
Yes, certainly. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from the College of New Jersey. I'm an expert in the field of traffic and transportation engineering. I've prepared over 100 traffic studies for land development applications. I've been accepted as an expert before over 50 boards in the state, and my license is current and in good standing.
And you have testified and you've been accepted as a witness in this area, is correct?
Yes.
I have no additional questions.
The court will accept him as a professional engineer with respect to traffic.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, John.
Great. So getting into some of the traffic and queuing analysis that we conducted for the proposed Wendy's development. Of course, this begins with the location of the Wendy's, not only in the surrounding roadway network and the site's location, but where the Wendy's is actually situated within the site. So the development itself, the Walmart ShopRite shopping center located on Pittstown Road, which carries about 12,000 vehicles per day. Of course, it is just off of exit 15 and I-78. But then on site itself, this is a location for the Wendy's that's not an out parcel like you would see at a typical shopping center situation where you have your fast food users and other out parcel type tenants at a front and center location right by the state highway or right by the main drag. This is actually a location within the shopping center that's very much tucked away into the center. It's situated in the rear of what I call the Walmart half of the shopping center, where you have that small strip center. We're in the rear of that, and it's located in an area on site where there's not a substantial amount of traffic activity or parking demand in the area. And so because we're tucked away in the shopping center, this Wendy's in particular is going to operate a little bit differently from a traffic and volume perspective than some other locations that the board may be familiar with. That said, we do want to be able to have an understanding of what some of the higher end Wendy's in terms of volume look like, so the board can get an understanding of how this particular site compares. And so what we did was we studied a Wendy's on Route 22 in Branchburg. This site is definitely one of the higher generating Wendy's sites. It's on Route 22, which carries about 3 times the traffic volume of Pittstown Road. It's about 35,000 vehicles per day. It's a standalone building in front of the ShopRite shopping center, has great visibility from Route 22. And on Route 22 in particular, there's very limited options as you're traveling between a Whitehorse Station and the Bridgewater Somerset area for fast food drive-through type users. And so that means we have a high rate of pass-by customers, people who are driving by that site, going to a further destination. You have a high rate of people who are looking to stay in their vehicle on longer trips. Whereas the Wendy's site that is being proposed here within the shopping center, you're looking to capture some traffic from the surrounding roadway network, but also traffic that already exists within the shopping center and from, you know, the immediate general area. And so, you know, when we look at that Branchburg site, we did field observations at that site. We conducted those in the weekday midday, Saturday midday, and then the weekday evening period as well. I looked at drive-through queuing at that high generating site and found an average or typical queue at that location during the midday periods of about 9 vehicles. And on that evening dinner period, it was much less, only 4 vehicles during the dinner rush, if you will. And so when we compare a development like that one with its high visibility, high rate of drive-through, and overall higher traffic volumes to a project like the proposed development, where we have 8 drive-through spaces without impacting, you know, the traffic or parking backing areas on the site. You know, in my professional opinion, this is a site that works well from a queuing perspective and can accommodate it very well. We're tucked further away. I wouldn't expect as high of a customer volume. I would expect a greater rate of walk-in trips and walk-in customers based on the presence of being within that shopping center and being an end cap on an existing shopping center building. And ultimately, that stacking area would be sufficient to support the queuing of the site. We do also have a bit of overflow within that parking area, given that parking area is not really heavily utilized by anyone within the shopping center today. Additional vehicles beyond the 8 can be accommodated within this parking area without impacting other tenants within the shopping center, customers within the shopping center who are not destined for the Wendy's. And so overall, this design and what's being proposed here today, I would not say has any substantial impact on the traffic operations of either the shopping center or the surrounding roadway network. You know, the layout here fits well with the queuing. It keeps some of the existing circulation patterns that are important for the shopping center with, you know, the access to the rear that's still necessary and those connections. And so this design, I think, works very well within the context of the shopping center and ultimately is a solid design, and the queuing of the site does not have any adverse impact.
And just so that I can make it clear, you submitted a report which is dated the 30th of June 2022, which also outlines this.
That's correct. Yes, it's June 30th, 2022.
We should mark that as A7. Anything further?
That concludes my direct.
All righty.
I have a question on the one drawing that shows the queue by that drive-in. I think they show 8 cars in that drawing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're basically bumper to bumper. I mean, that's not really realistic, is it?
In a drive-through configuration, drive-throughs tend to operate a bit differently than maybe like approaching a stoplight or traffic signal on a roadway network. So, you know, these vehicles and the layout that's provided here, I think is very typical of how vehicles stack within drive-through, and we still do provide, you know, on the drawing, area that is between the bumpers, right? I've worked on drive-through projects where we're showing the vehicles on the site and how that lays out, and I've seen, you know, that shown a lot closer, but I think the way that it's laid out here is an accurate depiction of the 8 vehicles.
John, would your opinion be the same if this was a bank drive-through?
Yes.
In terms of spacing?
Yeah, bank drive-through would also operate similarly.
Right, and this particular end cap was formerly a bank.
Correct.
What size car did you use in your modeling?
I would have to defer that to the engineer. I could see if I could scale this real quick, but I mean,
It looks to be full size.
yeah, it does. I'm looking at the dimensions on the box. They seem to fit in essentially the same dimension of the parking spaces that are adjacent.
So to the degree there'd be any compact cars, which clearly there would be, you just have that much more space.
Agreed.
I have a few questions. You said that the location of it being kind of off away from everything else would be a benefit, but my concern is, or question is, do you think there's any risk of the confusion of people trying to work their way through this 3-layer shopping center to find it, and that creating like more of a traffic, the flow of people through the like throughways of the center looking to find it because it's kind of tucked away?
I don't think that that's any different than any of the other users within the site. Whether you're
Okay.
trying to get to Jersey Mike's, whether you're trying to get to the TJ Maxx in the rear, the Verizon store within this, this strip. I think that's just typical of a shopping center layout and how they operate. And when you have a draw that's a little bit more local as opposed to a pass-by oriented site, there's a familiarity that's acquired from the population that would be frequenting
Yeah.
the site regularly.
I was thinking more of the people coming off the highway that like they put it in their phone and they see it's there and they've never been there.
Mhm.
Even sometimes I kind of forget which store is in which level and it's like, oh wait, I need to drive through here. So I just didn't know if you thought that would add any more,
Yeah,
I don't know,
the good
cars,
news-
people not paying attention as they're driving through and
yeah,
kind of.
I would say the
risk.
good news with the navigation is that it continues to get more sophisticated and that it's not just arriving at the driveway to the shopping center.
Right,
It would most likely navigate you all the way through to where the Wendy's is in the somewhat rear of the site.
Okay, my next question is another assumption we're saying is we have all this parking area because the other tenants aren't using it, but if something should change and like a higher use tenant move next door, do you have an allotted number of spaces that you can still depend on, or how would that factor in if conditions change and you don't have all the parking? Do we have control over the parking in front of your business? Or, I mean, everybody can park where they want to park. So does that present any future problems potentially?
I think that there would be very minimal occurrence of that. The site itself, the actual end cap that Wendy's is occupying is quite small, meaning that there's not a substantial number of seats inside. I believe the number is about 20.
Mhm.
And then you combine that with the parking that is provided on the left side of the page here, along with the parking areas that are actually out in front of
Okay.
the strip center, I think would be sufficient to support the Wendy's, and if there's a high generating user that comes in, support their volume as well, depending on the type of user, right? I mean,
Okay.
based on what could fit in that strip center, I believe that parking is sufficient.
Okay, because I feel like this is the riskiest part of the whole idea to me personally, is this, what happens if this traffic thing doesn't work out? And then there's a little bit of a chaos in that area. So I guess, is there anything, I mean, things can be changed within the parking lot if we did have to accommodate like something that just really is more than we expected, like pull off spots and things like that.
Yeah, if there's substantial unforeseen issues, it's certainly something that Wendy's would want to have worked out to have a functioning and operating site.
Okay.
But based on our history working with Wendy's and where we are in the shopping center and how this portion of the shopping center functions, I don't envision that happening. But there is room to work with should that ever come to fruition.
Okay.
Well, we also had testimony, I guess, at the last meeting, that if that queue for the drive-in got too long, that they would be asked, the customer would be asked to park in front of the building and the food would be brought out to them.
Yeah, that's something we've seen in many fast food type operations where they've made the payment waiting for the food, and then you can actually go and park, and that way they can keep the line moving. So I think that's, you know, another great resource that we have here in this particular location.
Anybody else from the board have any questions for the applicant's engineer? Anybody from the public have any questions for the applicant's engineer?
I don't see anyone with their hand up.
All right. I guess you can call your next expert.
Okay, that would be Matt Flynn. He's a professional planner. He is covering for John McDonough, who testified last month. It's my understanding, well, Matt will qualify himself in terms of his experience and knowledge about this particular case. So, Mr. Thomas, if you would please swear Matt Flynn.
Certainly, sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you be kind enough to state your name, spell your last name, and give us the location of your offices, please?
Sure. Matthew Flynn, Flynn. Address is 101 Gibraltar Drive, Morris Plains, New Jersey.
Thank you.
As council mentioned, I'm employed by John McDonough.
And if you could be kind enough to give us your educational and planning background, please.
Sure. My education comes from Rutgers. I got my master's degree in planning and public policy. I have my professional planner's license in the state of New Jersey, as well as my AICP certification, which is the national certification for planners.
Have you testified previously before planning, zoning, or land use boards?
I have.
And can you give us an idea about how many you've been involved with?
I would say close to 3 dozen.
Okay, and you've been qualified in each of those. Your qualifications have been accepted. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
And you've been employed with Mr. McDonough for how long?
About 4 or 5 years.
Okay, I have no additional questions. Thank you.
And does the board accept Mr. Flynn as an expert to give testimony, opinion testimony as a professional planner?
Yes.
Thank you. So Matt, John is unavailable, but please tell us how you were briefed for tonight's presentation.
Sure. So it's my understanding that all of the proofs were put in by John McDonough at the last hearing in regards to the D1 use variance, as well as all of the C variances. I know that there was some talk about some C variances that weren't included on the site plan, but it's my understanding that that testimony has been put in anyway. So just to go over quickly, all of the planning proofs remain intact. They're actually bolstered as a result of all of the changes that have been made to the plans. In terms of that D1 use variance, just to refresh the board, basically the standard for that test is known as the site suitability test, seeing that it's not a permitted use in the zone. What makes this site particularly suitable for the proposed use? In this case, we are looking at an existing shopping center. We're looking at a use being proposed that's somewhat insulated. It's remote from any residential properties. There's already that drive-through component since the last use was a bank. And again, there's no need to disturb any additional land since we are looking at an existing vacant tenant space in an existing shopping center. So this is a particularly suitable location for the proposed use. In terms of the project benefits or the positive criteria, The application promotes purposes A, G, I, and M. Promotion of the general welfare, all of the benefits that come with the drive-through, including benefiting people with disabilities, people with children, people that want to get some food maybe on a rainy day when the weather is not favorable. The convenience aspect, the safety aspects that have already been gone over. All of that goes towards purpose A, promotion of the general welfare. Purpose G, variety of uses in appropriate locations. Again, echoing all of that site suitability language. Purpose I, desirable visual environment, really giving this site a fresh new look, giving this proposed Wendy's some brand recognition, some imaging that's in line with contemporary standards. Purpose M is efficient use of land, again, filling out an existing vacant tenant space with something that was already, that was previously developed as a bank with a drive-up capabilities. So all of those positive criteria, that was all gone over by John McDonough at the last hearing. So to move over to the negative criteria or the potential detriments to the public or to the zone plan, I think that all of this has really been addressed, not only by John McDonough at the last hearing, but in terms of all the revisions that have been made. I think that our engineers and architect have done a good job regarding the fact that there will not be any spillover into any roadways. The circulation that's being proposed is safe and efficient. Again, all that testimony from our engineers. Again, remote from residential and not introducing a brand new building, but working with what's there. So all of that, the positive criteria and the negative criteria for the D1 use variance are still satisfied, actually bolstered as a result of the changes. And then all of the C relief is justified by virtue of the C2 balancing test. All of those benefits that I went over for the use variance carry forth for all the C variances. The benefits of the application as a whole outweigh any detriments. We are proposing a tasteful sign package. I know there's several variances related to signs that are really just for directional signs, which really don't represent any over signage or over branding of the site, but really to the benefit of safe and efficient circulation. If the board and if council wants me to go through those variances that were listed in the planner's letter that weren't specifically listed on the site plan, I can do that. But again, I think that all of those variances were already testified at the last hearing. So with that, that's my direct, and I'll open myself up to redirect or questions.
It's my understanding that Mr. McDonough did review all those variances. It's up to the board if they want additional testimony.
Any board members have any questions to the applicant's planner? Any members of the public have any questions for the applicant's planner?
I don't see anybody with a hand up. No hands up.
All right, thanks, Catherine. All right, if you have, I guess if you have another expert that you would like to have testify, please go ahead.
No, we don't. That's our bench.
All right, Mr. Chairman, it would be appropriate, I believe that at this point, members of the public who may have some testimony to give, this would be an appropriate time to open that up. And I always like to comment that a member of the public, when you are making comments on an application, it is testimony. And just as you have seen, we have sworn in each of the witnesses on the part of the applicant. We would do the same. I would do the same thing with you. It is a painless process, but it is necessary as part of the procedure. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll defer to you to open it up to the public.
All right, are there any members of the public who would like to make any statements or comments about this application?
I don't see any hands up. I'm still waiting a couple minutes. Let's see. I don't think Roger. Oh, I have one. Ally Taff.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so
Okay.
much. I've been tuning into all these meetings and I really appreciate everyone's input.
Ms. Task, if you'll be kind enough, do you swear the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Would you be kind enough to give us your name, you spell your last name, and give us your address, please?
Allison Taft, sorry, hold on. I think this will be better audio wise for you. Allison Taft, that's TAFF 41 Upper Kingtown Road.
Great. And,
Go ahead.
Is it possible that you could be on camera to be seen?
It's not ideal based on my day. It's not a testimony. I would just like to comment that, you know, I've been to all the township meetings and I've been following these meetings with regards to this. And, you know, we know that we need ratables. And I think that these applicants have, you know, accommodated all of the, you know, requirements and adjustments that the land use board has asked for. And I just would like to say that I personally think it would be a good use of the space that's sitting empty.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ingrid,
Can you hear? Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Hi. Do you swear or
I'm
affirm?
actually Allison's mom. I'm Ingrid Taft, 41
Okay.
Upper Kingtown Road.
Okay, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth? So help you God.
Yes, I do.
And again, I apologize, I spoke over you. So if you give your name and address again, please, so we can get it for the record.
Sure. Ingrid Taft, TAFF, 41 Upper Kingtown Road in Pittstown, New Jersey.
Thank you.
I've actually been involved in a lot of legal affairs and medical legal discussions, and quite aware of what it involves to swearing people and get their testimony. And I must say, I've been very impressed with the representation of the people for Wendy's and their explanations, their willingness to deal with the township requirements, you know, their expertise. So whatever it's worth, I think it's a very worthwhile endeavor. And if it brings funds to the township, which has been a major issue, I think we should vote to get them in. So that was my contribution to tonight.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Catherine, anyone else want to be recognized?
Not at this time. I don't see anyone, Roger.
All right, we closed the public comment portion.
Roger, I just had a question. I know Mr. Toda had a question earlier in regards to the traffic engineering, and I didn't know if he felt satisfied with what response was given or if he had any follow-up on that, just to make sure everybody's covered.
Hi, this is Frank. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say I'm satisfied. I would, I guess for lack of a better way to characterize my satisfaction, I'd say that the design is probably a B- for the drive-through when it could be an A+. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied with, you know, what's been designed.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, it would appear at this point that since there's no additional testimony from the members of the public, and given what I've heard at the beginning by the applicant's attorney, they are not looking for a vote because there's only 5 members. And as you know, for the D variance, they must have 5 affirmative votes. So it is my understanding, Mr. Locher, that you are seeking to carry the matter to the next meeting with the hope that there will be 5 or 7 members that will have listened to the tape of all of the 2 meetings and are available to vote. Is that my understanding? I guess the answer is yes.
Well, my client has advised me that he would like to ask for a vote tonight.
And your advice to him is to go ahead and do that?
No. And I told them that my recommendation is not to go ahead and ask for a vote on a D variance with only 5 members present.
Well, you want to take like 30 seconds and text this thing out to decide what you want to do?
Sure. And before we do that, Catherine, when would the next meeting be?
It's the 11th of October. Of
October.
Sorry about that.
Please don't fast forward summer that much.
It would be the 4th.
27th of
That'll
July.
be July
Oh, it's
27th.
not the 11th?
That's 2 weeks from today.
It's
So
the second-
7/27 would be the next meeting.
wouldn't it
July
be-
27th.
Okay.
Catherine, we're not having the meeting on the second Wednesday?
Well, we do them on the 2nd and the 4th.
Well, the
Today is
second,
the second
This is
Wednesday of
second.
July.
This is the second today.
Yeah, it's not the end of July yet.
oh, I'm sorry, you're absolutely right. I apologize.
Roger,
Yes.
is it worth pointing out to the applicant that there's no guarantee that we're going to have a quorum this time of year next month? As a matter of fact, historically, we've been closed. We haven't had hearings in the month of August.
Well, we're,
There's also no guarantee that we're going to get our remaining 2 members, or they'll be available to listen to the tapes in time for an August meeting.
Yeah, I apologize. I would just, I got it wrong. I thought it was going to be August the 11th. It is actually the 27th of July is the next meeting date. 2 weeks from today.
But once again, there's no guarantees,
yeah,
Understood.
and it is the summer months.
yeah, Dave, to answer your question, yeah, historically, we haven't had any meetings in August, but I think the last maybe half a dozen years or so, we have been having at least, I think, 1 meeting in August.
Well, let me ask you this. My client wants to take a 5-minute break, but let me just ask you this right now. We were surprised that there were not a full complement of members present with the D variance. I understand that it is the summer and that you are all volunteers who take time away from your work and your family to do this, for which you should be lauded. If we did agree to carry this to your July 27th meeting, I really would hope that Catherine could reach out to the 2 members who weren't able to be present to solicit their spirit of volunteerism and dedication to duty to make it a point to listen to the tapes and be available for the July 27th meeting. If my client decides.
Yeah, I'll absolutely do everything I possibly can. Unfortunately, they both had work-related issues and weren't able to be here. So, but
Well,
I
let
will
me ask-
certainly do everything I can.
Let me ask this question. We have 5 members. Are any of these 5 members not going to be available for the 27th? Let's start with that. At least we can get an answer.
That's a good question.
Dave, what about you?
I'm checking right now.
Okay. John Tonay.
I'm checking.
Okay.
I expect to be here, God willing.
Okay. Ken Weiss.
Checking, 1 second. There is a good chance I will not be here.
Okay. John Tonay.
I should be here.
Roger.
I'll be here.
Jen.
I'll be here too.
So it looks like we have 4 that are saying that they're going to be here. Well, let's leave it at that. We have, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, Catherine, we have 2 members, we only have 2 more members available?
Correct.
Okay. So it looks like Alan, that you would
Roger.
probably.
Roger, could you, let's take that poll again for the first meeting in August, just for,
Okay,
okay, and see if we get a better response. And,
alrighty.
you know, in this way here,
That's August 10th,
August 11th, I think.
Let me grab my calendar. Hold on.
the 10th,
the second,
August 10th.
Yes,
Okay.
August.
I'm good for the 10th.
Okay. John Fanning,
I'm good.
Jen Fisher,
Should be okay.
Roger Soltis,
I'm good.
and Ken Weiss.
I'm good, but do care for an elder parent, which is the only issue that far out for me.
Okay. But if it's still a Zoom meeting, presumably that gives you some flexibility, correct?
It does. I have a parent who lives in the mountains, but yeah, I can drive to a location if need be.
Okay. So it looks like we have a pretty good idea. That's 5 if you were willing to carry it to the 11th, I'm sorry, the 10th, excuse me, of August. And then, as Catherine always does, she will be reaching out to the other members to encourage them to, number one, be present and to listen to the tape of the meetings today and or the meeting in June, if anybody needs to do that.
Roger,
Which Roger?
you,
Okay,
this is your world.
yes, it is.
There's no way to accommodate a straw vote or anything like that without it being highly unorthodox or causing issues later.
I've always been I'm not a big proponent of straw votes. Because, you know, God forbid somebody ends up as part of a straw vote saying one thing. And then when we come and then because it's a straw vote, theoretically, the applicant and the applicant's attorney, you know, shouldn't necessarily be relying upon it, but of course they do. And then should somebody change their mind, we don't have an awful lot of margin for error. So that's why I'm always a little reluctant, you know.
I certainly understand that, but I had to ask.
Sure.
My client has asked for a 5-minute break. It's kind of awkward, as you might imagine, to try to engage with the board and the board professionals and also try to carry on a dialogue with a client.
Why don't you do this? Why don't you put yourself on mute, you know, take yourself off camera and call your client and we'll give, well, if it's up to the board, if 5 minutes.
Roger,
Sure.
could you just, could we just explain to you, we just took another poll among the members, okay? So for the second meeting in July, we had 4 of the 5 members who can definitely make that meeting. So if the other 2 make it, that's 6, okay? But if we go to the first meeting in August, so far, all 5 of the members that are here can definitely make it. And then it's a matter of picking up, you know, the other 2. So I just want to let you know about that in case you weren't, you know, if you were busy with your client.
Alan, why don't you go on mute and maybe go off camera and take a minute or two to talk on the phone. I know that frankly, texting is not talking. Why don't you talk to him?
Okay, thank you.
Roger Soltis, is there any other business we can conduct while we're waiting?
Public comment or comments from the board.
Other than what's on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, you know, there's been an issue with, you know, Zoom meetings and meetings in person. And Catherine tried to reach out to me, you know, about what we wanted to do with this meeting. Unfortunately, I wasn't around most of the week last week, so she couldn't get a hold of me. But I did talk to her the other day, and what I told her was that what I think we should be doing is having our meetings. If all we have is a meeting to do a resolution and bills, I think we should just do it by Zoom so people don't have to get in your car and ride, for a 15 or 20-minute meeting. But if we have an applicant, we should meet in person down at the municipal building.
I second that. I think that's reasonable.
While they're talking, would you want to do that, Dave and Roger, on this particular, I understand fully what you're talking about for a new application. Here,
This one here, we can finish up with Zoom.
okay,
I agree with that as well.
okay.
Guys, the only thing you have to be aware of, this is Phil, sorry to chime in. You have to be aware of the notice and where the location of the meeting is. So you have to know way ahead of time if you're gonna have, you might not know if you're gonna have an applicant or any type of application before you notice. So that's the only concern that you might have to worry about.
Well, you're right, Phil, but generally speaking, Catherine knows in advance if there is usually well in advance, if there's going to be an application at a particular meeting. So, the notice can be put in at least a 10-day period. Maybe somebody it has never been my experience here in Franklin that somebody is putting in an application on the 13th day and then expects to be at the meeting 10 days later.
Phil?
Yes, Dave.
I do think we need to look seriously at expanding the board, the number. At very least, replace Mr. Dilly and maybe even go one beyond that.
Okay, I mean,
I would agree. It's supposed to be a 9-member board, and sounds like you have 7 now, so you need at least that to be a full board, and that would be very helpful. And of course, you have the right to have alternates, which would bring the board membership up to 13. But certainly, I think you should try to at least get up to 9.
okay, then Roger, you and I should have, Roger Soltis, you and I should discuss, and then we did receive a couple of applications, and then you and I should discuss and maybe to interview those individuals.
All right, fine. Catherine, what do we have coming up?
Nothing. I have not heard yet from the solar farm where they stand with their application, but that's it. I have not gotten any new applications yet.
And
Catherine, are
nothing
you on
else?
vacation?
I am on vacation.
Well, you know
No,
what?
she's living in the car right now.
That's good, because I was afraid she was living in her car.
Kudos to you, Catherine.
And of
Kudos
course,
to
God, you were going to call for a raise if that was the case, right? She's in.
That's dedication. That's dedication. Good job.
Thanks, Dave.
Alan's back.
Alan, what's up?
Well, this is where we get to play Solomon, sort of. Why don't we do this? Why don't we carry it to the July 27th meeting? And I will be in constant contact with Catherine to find out where things stand. So that if it looks very iffy, we can make a further adjournment if we need to. But and I know you understand this. I mean, this is step 1 of the process. If the board was to act favorably on this application, that means they can go get their zoning permit and building permit. But the lead time for projects like this is probably longer than we really realize. And you'd be into the fall for the resolution and construction. It just pushes everything back. And sometimes it's just, you can't help it. It's just the luck of the draw and who's available. And as I mentioned before, I've served on boards. So I do appreciate the fact that you're volunteers and that work and family do come first. So I get that. So if we can do this, if an announcement can be made by Mr. Thomas that this hearing will be carried without further notice to July 27th, let's do that. And I'll be in contact with Catherine to see what luck she's had with getting the other 2 members up to speed. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes,
Yes,
I think you have just made the announcement. The only thing I would add is no further notice will be provided to the members of the public. The meeting will be carried until the 27th of July at 7:30 using a format of Zoom, as has been done today.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your attention and have a good evening.
all right, good night.
Good night.
Okay, are there any comments from the public?
I don't see any, Roger.
Any comments from the board members? Okay, so if we wind up having this meeting in 2 weeks, then in all likelihood, we will probably not have to meet in August. So everybody take the month off. So Catherine, you might want to try to use that in your head.
Tell everybody. Use the incentive.
Oh, yeah, the carrot. We got the carrot.
Mr. Chairman, motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, guys. Good night. Have a good.
Hope
good
to
rest
see you
of
all
the
in 2
week.
weeks.
All
Good
right.
night, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone, good night.
Good night.